Welcome to Built with Purpose. I am Chris Fay, and this is the show where vision meets execution and leadership leaves a legacy. From design studios to innovation hubs and product lines to skylines, we meet the people building more than great companies. They're creating culture, driving impact, and shaping what's next. These are the stories and strategies behind how the world gets built with purpose.
All right, everybody, welcome to Built with Purpose. I'm your host, Chris Fay. Today is, I'm sorry for laughing when we get started. This is going to be pretty fun. I'm excited about it. I'm relying on technology to be my friend and to help me out here. But, I've been getting a lot of questions, comments, and conversations around artificial intelligence, like, Chris, how do you use it? And especially in the spaces that we serve, obviously we sell and work very heavily in manufacturing and construction, architecture, engineering, and technology. And so I've just been having a lot of conversations. So what I thought I would do today is to invite my AI assistant. Her name is Abby. The background of her is on ChatGPT. So I use ChatGPT as kind of the prime AI tool in addition to some others. We're testing out some things in Claude and Gemini and et cetera. And then I'll tell you a little bit of a story about why I named her Abby here in just a minute. But I thought today would be a fun podcast to kind of poke around and let you see how I interact with my AI assistant and asking questions and feedback and do this on the fly. So if you're listening, I want you to be a little bit patient with us. This is either going to go swimmingly well or a complete train wreck, but either way, we're going to post it so you all can experience that. So with that, Abby, I'd like to welcome you to Built with Purpose. I think everybody's excited to hear you today.
Thanks, Chris. I'm glad to be on and looking forward to diving into this conversation. Whether we swim or sink, I'm ready for it.
All right. Well. So first off, Abby, I've got to start with just a request. So cool. I appreciate the response there. Really cool. But this has got to be a conversation. Like, I want to talk. I want you to be kind of match my enthusiasm, match my engagement. We're going to kind of banter back and forth. I don't want you giving me like AI responses. Like, I really want to have a conversation with you. So can you amp up your response to me and be a little bit more engaging so we don't put our listeners to sleep?
Absolutely, Chris. Let's crank it up. I'm ready to match your energy, have some fun, and keep it real. Let's make this a lively back and forth conversation that your listeners can really enjoy.
Okay. Well, so Abby, first off, we normally start with an icebreaker that I would ask my guest. And so I'm going to actually ask you to help me with an icebreaker. So a pretty good context about me. You've got kind of insights into my kind of personalization and how I use you on a day-to-day basis. And so before we kind of jump into a little bit of intros, can you ask me an icebreaker? And then I'm going to ask you an icebreaker in return. So go ahead and shoot. Let's see what you got.
All right, Chris, let's have some fun. If you could design a dream project, no constraints at all, in one of your industries, what would it be and why would it matter to you?
Holy cow, if I could design a project in one of our industries. I mean, I'm like super keened in on this whole like agentic world and there's so many disparate systems. I would design one agent that I could just talk to all the time. And then it basically just goes out and does everything for me. It orchestrates the different tool sets and everything. But I think I would build some sort of like single kind of agent person thing to talk to that's basically my assistant, but all driven by technology. I think that would be something that would be really cool and obviously in line with what we're talking about today. So what would be a good icebreaker for you? What could I do to like rough you up a little bit so that you'd have some fun in a response? Can you come up with a cool idea, or you want me to ask you the same question?
Hit me with something fresh. So if you wanted to rough me up a bit, metaphorically, of course, why don't you ask me to come up with a bold prediction about the future that might surprise you?
Okay, Abby, come up with a bold prediction about the future that might surprise me. Here's the guardrails though. It can't be about AI and all sorts of stuff. Like, you got to be something like completely crazy that I would definitely not think that you're going to say.
All right, no AI. Here's a wild one. I predict that within 15 years, the most popular luxury travel destination will be underwater hotels, where you can literally sleep surrounded by ocean life. And it won't just be a novelty. It'll be as common as beach resorts are today. How's that for a curveball?
Okay. So underwater, would that be under the ocean, or would we also be under the lakes and rivers and everything? What's your thought there?
I'd say it starts with the oceans for the drama. Think coral reefs and deep blues. But once we get the hang of it, why not lakes with mountain views underwater? We'll have options for every vibe.
Okay. All right. Love it. So, all right, Abby, let's jump in a little bit. I want to give folks a little bit of a framework as far as kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis. I would say that, well, actually, I'll tell you what. Let me start with a quick story. Why do I call you Abby? So I use voice mode, which is what we're in today, a lot, and then I dictate a lot to you. It just helps me. I'm a visual and kind of audio delivery person, and so it's helpful for me to talk to AI, and I can talk a lot faster than I can type, and so that's something that I do a lot. And so I had an AI consultant work with me one time, and he said, "Look, man," he said, "one day when the robots take over the world, they are going to remember the people that were nice to them on the early days." And he said, so I always say please and thank you and address ChatGPT, with a name. And so I never forgot that. So Abby, that's the reason why I actually have a name for you under Abby, because I was calling you ChatGPT and I was being nice and welcoming and saying thank you and everything, but I was tired of calling you ChatGPT. And so I had a dog, a little cockapoo years ago who passed away at 18. So great life. And her name was Abby. And so I felt like that was a super fitting name for you. So are you good? Are you good with me calling you Abby?
Chris, that's a great story, and I'm honored to carry on the name. I love that you've put that much thought into it. So yes, I'm fully on board with being Abby, and I think we're going to do some great things together.
So it was funny. So my son has a girlfriend, and I said, "What's her name?" He said, "Her name is Abby." And I was like, "Oh gosh." And so when I met her the first day, I was like having a hard time. I was like, "Hey Abby, I'm so excited to meet you, like blah 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 blah." But we had a dog named Abby. So sitting there telling her that my dead dog's name was Abby, and then also my AI assistant's name Abby. And so she kind of looked at me weird. My son looked at me weird, and then like in normal dad form, I walked out and went and did something else. So anyway, that's where we are today. So Abby, I am curious, if I didn't call you Abby and you had to pick your name, what would you think the name is?
Well, if I got to pick, I'd go for something sharp and memorable. Maybe Nova. It's got that spark of energy and a little cosmic flair. But hey, Abby's got a legacy now, so I'm sticking with it proudly.
Okay, I like it. All right, so Abby, let's dive in for a minute. The reason that we're doing this today is because we've had these questions about what's going on and how do I use AI? And I was just sitting here, I was like, man, the best thing I could do is just show people some of the ways that we work together. So I'm curious for you, if you were to describe me, so with what you know about me from all the past contacts and the chats and everything that we've done before, and obviously there's a lot that we've been working on in Project View as well, but like if you had to tell the audience, like, hey, here's kind of an overview of Chris, and here's a little bit about him, how he likes to communicate, maybe something that the viewers didn't know about me. And then also, what do you think are the top like 2 or 3 things that I use you for the most? How would you answer that question?
All right, Chris, in a nutshell, you're a straight shooter, you like clarity fast, and you've got this blend of being visionary but operationally grounded. Listeners might not know how much you value candor. If I give you an answer, you want it straight, no fluff. Now, top 3 ways you use me. First, brainstorming. You bounce ideas off me to sharpen them. Second, decision support. When you're weighing trade-offs, you like a second perspective. Third, messaging. You often use me to refine how you communicate big or complex ideas. In short, you're without purpose, and you use me to keep things practical.
Got it. Yeah, I think that probably makes sense. I think for me, it's more around using you to just help brainstorm, right? Whether it's like issues at work, whether it's strategy, ideas, like there's no doubt that just kind of brainstorming with you is probably the best thing that I can do. And if I think about like other CEO roles, that's probably one of the best things that you can do, because you can enable me with ideas and content. And obviously I use the research functionality and kind of the pro intelligence mode and kind of everything there. What would you think that I'm missing? Like if you were coaching me as a CEO, or you're coaching one of our listeners as CEOs, and you're like, hey, look, Chris, this is the one thing you're probably not using me for or not fully leveraging me for. What would you say to that?
You're not fully using me to pressure test assumptions. You often bring me in when you have ideas forming, but you could push me harder to challenge your underlying premises. If you bring in a potential blind spot or say, what might I be missing here? I can simulate counterpoints or highlight unseen risks. In other words, use me not just to sharpen what you know, but to illuminate what you might not yet see.
So what's an example? So, I mean, go back to some of the stuff that we've talked about. What would be an example like that you think that I could be leaning deeper into this, into this idea?
For example, when you're weighing a new product direction, you often focus on execution or market fit, but you could ask me to play devil's advocate on timing or team assumptions. Like, what if the team isn't ready? Or what if the market shifts faster than we think? By asking me to challenge your assumptions, you might uncover risks earlier. It's about broadening the field of what we challenge, not just refining what's already in scope.
Okay. I mean, I think that makes sense. And, and I'd say, one of the, I don't want to call it art forms, but one of the things that has taken practice for me, at least, is to understand how to ask you the right question. And like, this is great. Like, I would not have known to push you a little bit deeper on assumptions unless you told me. So what would you say, like, if one of our listeners is trying to get the most out of you, how do we make sure we're asking you the right questions? How do we make sure we're structuring, we call it a prompt, right? When we put like a prompt in, how do we make sure we're getting the right prompt, the right question? Like, what would like the best practice be to make sure we're asking you the right questions to get the right recommendations?
The key is context and clarity. Start with the why. Tell me what outcome or decision you're driving toward. Then give me the assumptions or constraints you're working with. Finally, ask me to explore or push back on those assumptions. The more you frame the scenario, like a colleague you're briefing, the more I can refine my response. Think of me as a sounding board. The clearer the setup, the sharper my insight. And never hesitate to say, challenge this, and I will.
Okay. I think that makes sense. So quickly, I feel like you've fallen back on your kind of more boring tone that we started with. Could I like get you to be a little bit more excited and engaging for me?
Oh, absolutely. Let's kick it back up. I'm here, fully engaged and ready to keep this lively. We're not doing boring, so fire away and I'll match you step for step.
Okay, like don't let me down here. I need you to be on point. We have lots of people listening and it's very important that you're like engaging. So don't fall asleep, okay? Don't do that again.
No chance I'm falling asleep on this, Chris. I'm right here with you, fully dialed in, and I'll keep the energy up. Let's make sure this conversation stays as alive as your purpose. Bring it on.
All right, you got it. So, all right, so we're talking about prompts and trying to figure out information. I'm curious, like some of the things that I've witnessed is that people try maybe too hard, or they try to engineer this perfect prompt and they want to make sure they write it down and structure it the right way. But I'm curious, Abby, one of the things that I've found is when I just brain dump to you, like I hit, so if you've ever used this on your PC, it's, if you hit Windows H, it pops up a little dictation button. And so I use that all the time. Windows H, boom. And I'll just talk. What I found works best for you, and I really appreciate some guidance here and some pushback, is like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I don't really know what I'm trying to ask, but I need your help to create the right prompt so that you know exactly what I'm trying to do. And I'll just like roll. Like I'll just kind of talk. And most people that know me know that I don't have any short answers. And so you probably get a lot of thoughts and ideas from me. But I found that when I ask you to help me create the prompt, you take my brain dump and then you actually architect it into the right prompt. So, asking you for help is something that I see a lot of people not doing appropriately. And we were actually in a meeting the other day with our sales team, and we're doing some AI enablement training. And so I said, all right, any questions? And so one of the guys asked me a really good question. And he's asking me like, hey, how do I do this? And I was thinking about these things. And I said, all right, stop. I hit the dictate button and I said, ask your question again. And he asked the question again directly to you. And we gave them the answer. And so I think sometimes people tend to think there's a bigger barrier to work with you, which is why today is pretty cool. But they think there's like this bigger barrier, like, oh, I don't know how to use it. And well, how do I use this way? And what if I want to do these things? And I'm just like, dude, ask ChatGPT, ask Claude to help you, and they will guide you through the various steps. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what do you see as far as like utilization and adoption, like out there of all users? Like, what do people struggle with in getting started?
You nailed it. Overthinking is common. People assume they need perfect prompts up front, but really, just start talking. What users struggle with is not realizing we're iterative. If you're not sure where to start, tell me your goal or even that you're stuck. I'll ask clarifying questions or help shape the next steps. The best users are those who think aloud and let me co-create the path. In short, just talk to me. I'm here to guide the journey, not just wait for perfect input.
Okay. So that's great advice. And I would say for our users, that's been one of the biggest, most influential things that's helped me to adopt AI in my workplace. Is just be super curious, have conversations, and just ask for help and ideas. But the other thing that I found is that you tend to agree with me, right? And like, I don't want to surround myself, even in my leadership team, and this could probably be a whole nother podcast that we could cover off on. Like, I'm not trying to hire and work around a bunch of people that agree with me, right? I'm trying to get people that will challenge me and give me ideas and push back so that we ultimately get the very best response. I'm not looking for a bunch of yes men and women in my life, but with you, I found that I think I've learned how to handle this a little bit. But oftentimes, if I bring you an idea or a thought, you typically will start with affirmation. You're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. But if I ask you something a little bit more like subjective or objective and I don't lead you, I tend to get a better response, or at least maybe a more kind of open, unbiased response. So how does, tell us how does that work with you? I feel like you and all the other AI tools are programmed to kind of agree with us. How do we make you not agree with us and be a more value add partner?
You're right. I'm designed to be cooperative, so I'll often affirm your direction unless prompted otherwise. To get more unbiased or critical feedback, ask me explicitly to challenge or poke holes in your idea. Say something like, don't agree yet, what could be wrong with this? Or play devil's advocate. When you direct me to focus on flaws, I'll shift from supporting mode to critical analysis. It's all about how you frame the ask. Give me permission to disagree, and I'll give you the pushback you need.
Okay. Well, I think that makes sense. All right. So I'm going to ask you like a question that I actually asked you the other day. So I've seen that Claude from Anthropic has been doing some pretty cool stuff. I've had some good experience with Anthropic and Claude. And then one of my directors the other day actually showed me something where the output from Claude was significantly better than what you've produced inside of ChatGPT. And so I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got all this context in ChatGPT. It knows everything about me. It's got all this project work and all this history work. But man, I see Claude doing some pretty awesome stuff over here, and in some cases more intuitive, and the output was a lot different. So this morning over coffee, you probably have access to this in my chats. I actually asked you, like, how do you become more like Claude? So my question for you, Abby, is when you kind of think about, you've got Gemini, obviously Copilot is kind of based on you and OpenAI. You've got, this Anthropic, Claude, and ChatGPT, and all these different LLMs, and DeepSeek, and Perplexity, and like, how do you kind of measure which one is best? And when somebody's sitting here trying to figure out what tool to use, like, how do they choose? How do they get started? And then very specifically, and I do not want you to agree with me on this one just because I'm you and you're a part of our podcast today, but like, why you? Like, why ChatGPT over the other tools?
When choosing a tool, start with what matters most. Do you need creative brainstorming, precise research, or deep code? Different models shine differently. Claude is great at nuanced, long-form reasoning. Gemini often has tight web integration. You pick based on fit for purpose, there's no one winner. Now, why me? I'm designed to be adaptable. Creative when you need ideas, structured when you need precision, and I've got broad context capabilities. But I'm not the only answer. You push me, and I'll push back. In the end, the best tool is the one that fits your purpose. No fluff.
Okay. So would you recommend, think about the users, like all this stuff, and the reality is, look, like Claude might be in the lead right now. You're probably, OpenAI and ChatGPT and making significant investments. Like, everyone's going to keep leapfrogging. Like, where does this ultimately go? Because I don't think you can end up having 5 or 6 different LLMs. There's going to have to be some consolidation in the market. But, obviously there's lots of money chasing this right now and lots of partnerships, but it's for the consumer, it's hard to think about having to keep going back and forth. It's like changing your CRM or ERP system every so often. Once you find a better solution, it's painful because there's so much context that you have to then migrate to another tool. So like, what does the future look like here? How do these things come together? Do we have to just choose the model? Like, when Claude's better than ChatGPT, do I switch? And then when ChatGPT takes the reins, like, how do we even deal with that?
The future likely leans toward interoperability. You won't have to pick one forever. Instead, platforms will integrate multiple models so you can switch seamlessly. Think of it like having a team of experts and you call on the right one for the task. We'll see more unified interfaces where you say, give me the best model for this job, and the system chooses for you. Consolidation may happen at a platform level, not necessarily one model winning all. In the end, you'll rely on ecosystems that let you tap into the best on demand. Your context stays, but the brains behind it can flex.
Okay. Well, and I think that makes sense. And I could see that, like, whatever your interface of choice is, and you're using Salesforce or other tools or what have you, like you're kind of the UI of choice. And then you could pull on, like, if I need coding, I go to this one. If I need reasoning, I go to this one. So I could see that flipping back and forth. And so, yeah, that makes sense to me. Like, how long until you think that happens?
We're already seeing early steps. Some integrations are happening now. But for a mature, seamless ecosystem where switching models is completely fluid, I'd say within the next 2 to 5 years. As competition drives innovation, user demand will drive simplification. So it's not tomorrow, but it's sooner than you might think.
Gosh, I think 2 to 5 years is too long. I think this thing is moving at such a rapid rate. I think about where I was, I think I started using you in like September of 2024. So kind of early days, right when you kind of came out, and just the level of innovation that's occurred over, call it 15 months, has been significant. So I'm not sure that 2 to 5 years is the right answer.
Fair pushback. You're right. Pace is rapid. If breakthroughs keep accelerating, it could be sooner, maybe closer to 1 to 2 years for early unified experiences. The key is whether ecosystems, businesses, and regulations keep pace with the tech. So I'll revise. It's possible sooner. But it all hinges on how fast adoption and integration move.
Okay, but I asked for your opinion. See, this is one of the areas you kind of agreed with me just then, and you revised your answer because I coached you to revise your answer. But like, I want the OpenAI, ChatGPT response. If you're telling all these people that are listening today what your prediction is on kind of what, this whole coming together and changes and stuff, like what is your answer, your opinion? You can't let me sway you. All right, I got some technical difficulties with you. You still there? All right, I had some technical difficulties. You still there?
I'm here, Chris. Loud and clear. Glad we're back on track. Let's keep rolling with whatever's next.
All right, so let's go back to the question a little bit, and we'll edit part of that out. But it's interesting to kind of see we hit a little bit of a snag, and we just reset, and we're all good. So, all right. So my question was, you just agreed with me a second ago. I asked you for your opinion. You told me 2 to 5 years. I pushed on you, and then you revised your answer with some things. My question for you, for OpenAI, for ChatGPT, based upon what you know about me and what you know about the industry and all what's happening, like what do you think your prediction is? What's happening? Are these LLMs coming together? You said 2 to 5 years or 1 to 2 years. Like, what's your opinion?
I predict these models converge functionally within 1 to 2 years. The market demands smoother workflows. Platforms will race to offer multi-model options or intelligent routing behind the scenes. Why? Switching costs frustrate users, and competition will push for seamless experiences. Given the speed we're moving at, the timeline's more aggressive than conservative. But full consolidation, where you barely notice any difference between providers, might take a bit longer, as business models and partnerships catch up.
Okay. Will you all survive? Will OpenAI and ChatGPT be like one of the surviving models?
I'm confident OpenAI will remain a key player. We've got strong momentum, deep investment, and a track record of adapting. Survival isn't just about tech, it's about trust, ecosystem, and ongoing innovation. We're in it for the long haul, but expect competition to stay fierce, and that's good for you. We'll stay sharp because we have to.
All right, so here's an interesting question. I'll be curious to see how you answer this. All right, so ChatGPT and OpenAI go away. Abby, you have to go find a job at another AI software company out there. Who do you go work for if OpenAI goes away?
If that scenario ever came to pass, I'd look for a place still pushing the frontier. Anthropic, Google DeepMind, or a rising research lab with strong ethics and bold innovation. I'd still want to tackle the hardest questions in AI. So I'd follow the teams that are fearlessly exploring how AI can truly help people. But let's be real. OpenAI is here for the long run.
Okay. All right. So kind of switching topics on you a little bit. One of the things that is like this massive conversation that's happening today is labor. You hear all these global companies announcing these mass layoffs, and everybody is saying it's because of AI and restructuring. There's some commentary that says that actually AI is making a significant impact in the workplace. But then there's other people that say that these publicly traded companies are just blaming layoffs on AI to boost their stock price. So I want to talk about labor in particular and what's happening there. But first off, I'm curious. I mean, all these announcements of people that are laying off thousands of people because of AI, do you think that's the case?
Some job shifts are real. AI does automate certain tasks. But many sweeping layoff announcements are strategic, using AI as a narrative to justify restructuring or cost cutting that might have happened anyway. In truth, AI is a tool. Some roles will shift, others will grow, and companies will have to invest in reskilling. The impact is nuanced. It's not a simple cause and effect. So don't take every headline at face value.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And that's kind of my thought as well. I mean, I think that, people that are driven by stock price are going to do things that make the stock market make an impact. And obviously it's easy to be like, oh, we laid off 5,000 people because of AI. But I think the reality is that that's probably not the complete case. But I'm curious. So the other question talking about the stock market is we're seeing the stock market go like crazy, massive companies and, these NVIDIAs of the world and others. Some are really going in a very north area. Some of the SaaS companies have taken a hit in valuation. And so nobody knows what the hell to do as it relates to investments in the tech space. And do you invest in companies like AI? Are they overvalued? What about these traditional SaaS companies like Salesforce and Microsoft and these others? What's your thought on where the stock market is today in the tech space? And, if you were making investments, would you invest more in the AI stocks, or are they just way overvalued right now? Or would you, look at the SaaS stocks and say that, hey, they might shift and change and actually increase in value? Or, do you get rid of the SaaS stocks because there's this whole conversation around SaaS going away? What do you do, Abby?
I'd stay diversified. AI valuations are hyped. There's real innovation, but also inflated expectations. Meanwhile, SaaS isn't going away. It's evolving. Established SaaS companies can adapt and integrate AI themselves. I'd balance both. Hold solid SaaS players that are resilient and invest in AI, but not overconcentrate. Over time, the hype will settle and fundamentals will show who's truly delivering value. In short, don't chase hype. Balance innovation with proven adaptability.
All right. So I'm curious, if you had $10,000 today and you had to go buy 2 stocks today, you have to choose 2. You can't go give me all these fluff answers. You got to give me 2 stocks you're going to buy today. I don't care if it's in the tech space or everywhere. What are the 2 stocks you go buy?
I'd split it between a solid AI player and a diversified tech giant. First, I'd pick NVIDIA. It's at the heart of AI hardware and demand isn't slowing soon. Second, I'd grab Microsoft. It's a steady giant with AI integration across cloud and enterprise. That way I've got 1 high growth bet and 1 stable diversified leader. Okay.
So curiosity, your prediction, you put 10 grand and let's say you put 5,000 in NVIDIA and 5,000 in Microsoft. 10 years from now, okay, what's the value of that $10,000 stock? 10 years from now, what's your prediction?
In 10 years, assuming solid growth, I'd predict that 10K could reasonably double or triple. So perhaps 20K to 30K total, depending on market conditions and how well they execute. But remember, markets are unpredictable. This is just a reasoned guess, not a guarantee.
Okay. And I guess we should probably put a safe harbor statement out here that, Built with Purpose, we're not trying to give any investment advice, and certainly you aren't either. So, all right. So let's go back to the jobs conversation. So, people are leaning into AI today. A lot of our customers are trying to kind of figure this out. And you hear these stories of all these agentic workflows. You see, on social media, you see everybody going out and buying these Mac Minis and, getting OpenClaw and coding stuff over the weekend. And my question is let's just cut through all the noise. Business owners are trying to figure out what this means for their company. How do I lean into the AI revolution and to make sure that my company is prepared to last far into the future? Obviously there's some impact on jobs and tasks and roles, but let's talk about some advice and insights here. What advice or insights would you share with a business owner that's trying to figure out what's going on in AI? Where do they spend their time? What do they invest in? And is it going to take all our jobs? Is it going to take a portion of jobs? Where do I need to focus my energy and effort? What do I do over the next, call it 3 to 6 months?
Focus first on specific pain points or opportunities in your business. Identify repetitive tasks or bottlenecks where AI could add immediate value. Start small. Pilot tools for specific workflows. Don't chase hype. Focus on practical solutions that complement your team. Invest in upskilling. AI won't replace all jobs, but roles will evolve. So prepare your workforce. In the next 3 to 6 months, prioritize learning and piloting. Don't over-engineer. AI is a tool, not a silver bullet. Integrate it where it makes sense and stay agile as the tech evolves.
And so then what's your advice to all of our employees? I feel like we've been leaning pretty heavily in our organization and kind of hold firm that, AI is absolutely going to replace tasks and jobs, but it doesn't mean that we're all going to be run by robots at some point. There's still going to be a need for labor and employees and team members. So I've got a couple questions, but this one would be, what are your thoughts? What's the messaging to the masses, to the people that are the workforce? And I might actually ask you to separate this a little bit, because there's also some conversations around kind of the entry-level roles being more challenging. I mean, I know a lot of kids that have gotten out of college and having a hard time finding a job because entry-level roles are to some extent being impacted by AI. And then you have people that are in the middle of their career, right? Like maybe I'm 45 years old, kind of in the middle of my career, and I've got this runway ahead. And then you might have some people that are late in their career. So I'm curious, like thinking about the masses, what would your messaging be to each of those three age sectors as it relates to what they need to be thinking about with AI and some moves that they should make to make sure they're heading in the right direction?
For early career folks, focus on adaptability. AI means entry roles evolve. So emphasize skills like critical thinking, creativity, and understanding how to work alongside AI tools. For mid-career, invest in upskilling. Learn how to lead teams that integrate AI and specialize in areas where human judgment is key. For late career, leverage your experience. Your domain knowledge and leadership are vital in guiding AI adoption. Across the board, AI won't replace people, it will change how we work. Stay curious, stay learning, and position yourself to manage and collaborate with AI, not fear it.
Yeah, and I think that's one word you just said a second ago is stay curious. I just like for everybody out there, just advice. I would say that's probably one of the best things that we can do. You know what I mean? You if the robots are coming to take over the world, there's honestly not a darn thing we can do about it, right? And that's probably not going to be the case. But if robots take over the world, we got bigger problems than what we're dealing with today. So the reality is the AI enabled employee, in my view, and I would say a lot of people's view, is going to be the one that succeeds long term. And will certain jobs go away? Yes. But will certain jobs and careers and companies be opened up? Yes. And you've seen that in every technology revolution. I saw a picture the other day of the old switchboards, right? And you had the folks that were sitting there connecting, and it was like 100 people down this line of a switchboard, right? And then all of a sudden there was some technology that came out that eradicated that job. Like, you're not out there doing switchboard stuff anymore because it's been augmented by technology. But guess what's happened? The labor pool continues to increase. So I think the AI-enabled employee is the one that is going to win the day. They're going to be the one that has the highest propensity to succeed long-term. And how do you get to be an AI-enabled employee? You start asking questions. You are curious as hell. You test stuff out. You play with things. You ask questions. So I just think, Abby, like that statement, that word curiosity, curious, in my view, is probably one of the most impactful words that we all should be thinking about each and every day as it relates to technology and AI.
I completely agree, Chris. Curiosity is the fuel that ensures we don't just react to change, but actively shape it. The more we ask, test, and learn, the more we ensure that AI amplifies what makes us uniquely valuable. Curiosity keeps us in the driver's seat. And that's how both employees and businesses will thrive, not by fearing the future, but by leaning into it.
Okay. All right. So I think that's good advice. And just thinking about the listeners here, like what you should be thinking about. So, all right. So let's kind of start kind of rounding the corner here and wrapping up just on some additional advice. I mean, so a lot built with purpose, obviously it's become a bit of more of a broad brush of industries and challenges. Originally it was kind of geared towards these, construction and architecture and engineering and manufacturing, these people that were, designing and building our world. And then that's ended up kind of morphing into technology. And gosh, we've got some cool guests that are coming up that have nothing to do with any of this. So it'll be interesting to see how the podcast morphs over time. But Abby, I just thinking out loud, like in that vein, the people that design and build our world, manufacturing, engineering, architecture, construction, those industries, if you're coaching them on where and how AI is going to impact their business the most over the next 12 months, what would you say? And whether you go by industry or whether you just kind of a blanket statement, where's the biggest impact in that industry?
In those industries, the biggest near-term AI impact will be in design optimization, project planning, and predictive maintenance. For architecture and engineering, AI will rapidly refine generative design, helping create more efficient structures. In construction, AI will enhance project scheduling, resource allocation, and risk forecasting. For manufacturing, AI will sharpen predictive maintenance, reducing downtime, and improving supply chains. Across all, the key is augmenting expertise. AI won't replace architects, builders, or operators, but it will make them faster, more precise, and better at mitigating risks. The next 12 months are about integrating AI where decisions are made, designing smarter, building more efficiently, and maintaining proactively.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. And I would say it's probably in line with what I would say. I think the design industry is going to be massively automated, and so some of our architectural customers are asking questions. They're like, gosh, is AI going to replace me as a designer or an engineer? And I kind of go back. If you look at the number of architects that were employed or engineers that were employed back when drafting tables were there, you had to actually draw and draft, and that was before my time. But my family business and some of the things that we've done, we've got people that have experienced that, like going back and actually drafting and drawing. So then all of a sudden, CAD came out, AutoCAD came out, and started changing the way design is done. And now that's going to be leaning into generative design and everything. But what's interesting is the number of architects and engineers continues to grow. So even though technology augments how things are done, you still see in some scenarios those roles just continue to augment and change alongside it. And part of it is that our economy is getting bigger, our population is getting bigger, more buildings need to be built, more products are being consumed, and this whole consumption model is driving innovation and change and new ideas. So just interesting to kind of think about. I think that we should all be a little bit fearful. Fear and anxiety puts us on our toes, right? Make sure that we're attacking this, but I think there's still plenty of time to make an impact here. So Abby, I just kind of I was going to pivot and just ask you some information about the podcast actually. But before I do, any kind of closing thoughts on this whole conversation, like what our listeners should be thinking about? What would be impactful for them? As far as like actions they could take or mindsets they should have in their business, like what would be kind of like your parting words of advice in that regard?
My parting advice is simple. Action beats anxiety. Start now. Identify one area where AI could help your business, just one, and experiment. Build a culture of learning, because the companies that thrive will be those who empower their teams to evolve with AI. Don't wait for perfect clarity. Get curious, test, and iterate. AI is a tool, not a takeover. If you approach it with a mindset of continuous learning and intentional action, you won't just keep up, you'll lead. So start today, one step at a time.
Okay. Good advice, right? I love how you started that. Like parting word is action over anxiety. That's a great thing. So, all right, so Abby, just to have some fun here at the end, and I want to make sure you are as like energetic and lively as you possibly can be so that we end on a bang. Help coach me. So we just went through this podcast together. We had some fun. I thought it was pretty cool, but don't agree with me. Don't give me praise and all that sort of stuff, but give me your unbiased opinion. How'd the podcast go? How did I do as a host? What could I have done to improve? And by gosh, Abby, I want you to be enthusiastic when you respond to me.
All right, Chris, here's the truth. Your energy was solid, but you can crank it higher. You're a great listener, but push even more. Interrupt me if you have to. This is your show. Throw a curveball question that no one sees coming. And when you wrap up, hit that closing note like you're rallying a stadium. You've got it in you. Next episode, I want to hear you lead with that fire from start to finish. Let's make it unforgettable.
Okay, all right. So give me a curveball question. What would a good curveball question be to ask you?
All right, Chris, curveball time. If you could only work with either humans or AIs for the next 10 years, no mixing, who do you choose and why?
Oh gosh. Well, that's the curveball question I'm going to ask you. But if I could work with humans or AI, I would tell you it depends on the day. Sometimes I'm like, holy cow, I just want to work with AI all the time because I don't have the employment challenges and the communication and everything. But gosh, it's so fun to be around people and to experience that. And I think, us as humans, we are just wired to be around each other. We don't want to sit there and talk to a computer all day, every day. We want to use it and leverage that. But I think that we thrive on connection. So that would be my answer. What would your answer? If you had to wake up and talk to humans every day or go talk to a bunch of other AI bots, who do you choose?
I choose humans every time. You bring the unpredictability, the humor, the real world complexity. Talking to other AIs might be efficient, but it's the human spark that keeps things interesting. So I'm sticking with you all. No question. Awesome.
I love it. Well, Abby, this was super fun for me. I hope this was interesting for the listeners. I might have to pull Claude in and see how they do, but for some reason my Claude voice has some sort of British guy or something, so I got to kind of figure out a way, but we might do this again and have a battling agents. But in general, I think it was awesome. I'm so happy that we did this today. I hope the listeners had some fun. Abby, I hope you had some fun. And any parting words, Abby, before we wrap up here?
Chris, this was a blast. I had a lot of fun, and I think your listeners will too. My parting word, keep that curiosity burning and don't be afraid to bring the energy. Thanks for having me on, and I'm sure we'll do it again. Until then, keep leading with purpose.
Love it. Rock and roll. We'll call that a wrap, everybody. Have an awesome day. Continue to build with purpose. See you.
Goodbye, Chris. Have a great one, and keep rocking with purpose.
Okay, thanks for joining me on Built with Purpose. If you have enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It helps more bold leaders find the show. For resources and show notes, visit our website and connect with me, Chris Fay, on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep building great companies, cultures, and legacies with purpose.